Hey everybody, welcome back. Today I am back on my food plot and I wanted to show you guys just an update on how my winter rye looks. Winter rye is just something that every year continues to be more and more important for me in my food plot, just because of the soils here that I've got on the land that we bought a few years ago. Really dry, really light, kind of arid soils here, sandy, well-drained soils, and I've struggled to get brassicas to grow well between the soil not holding enough moisture and just the really heavy deer browse. Just struggled to get brassicas and other types of crops to grow, but the more that I plant here on this property with the sandy soils, the more I find myself relying on cereal grains like rye and oats. So this year I actually planted rye and oats in this part of the field that I'm standing in right now. And I'll show you guys some close-ups of what these plants look like right now. I planted this part of the plot that I'm standing in a lot earlier than conventional wisdom would tell you. I planted this actually at real early August. It was in the first week of August, and I know that kind of goes against what most folks will tell you. The reason I did it, well, there's a couple reasons. First off, the winters up here come early and they stay late, and so like whatever part of the country you're in, chances are you're not getting the kind of cold as early as we do in north central Minnesota. Our average first frost date is, I believe, September 19th. So wanted to get it out 4, 5, 6 weeks ahead of that average first frost date. The other reason is just because I have such incredible deer browse pressure here. I wanted to make sure I got plants that were rooted in well and get some established, and then I could always come over and top seed it, which is actually what I did this year. So I wanted to get some going and rooted in. It was a really dry summer this past summer, so I was worried that if I waited too long to plant my rye, that it wouldn't establish roots and even survive into the fall. Now, we ended up getting plenty of rain in the fall, so it ended up working out okay, and I top dressed it with a bunch more oat and rye seed, so there were younger plants. So the risk that I ran with planting too early is that this rye would get too woody and stemmy and less palatable for deer, and its attractiveness would decrease. That was the risk I took. Just given the amount of browse pressure that I have here, I thought it was a risk worth taking. This next year, I'll probably plant, assuming a normal rain cycle and rain season, I'll probably plant my rye honestly in mid-August next year, just so that there's enough volume and tonnage on the plants themselves so that the deer don't have it down to the dirt. Like if I were to just plant this for the first time on Labor Day weekend, I'm worried that as it tries to come up, the deer would just keep it down to the dirt and there'd be very little tonnage here for the deer. So early season, this rye did amazing. I had so many deer on this plot early season. Throughout the middle part of the fall, same thing. This rye and then the oat combination did awesome. It really brought the deer in. And now late season, it's very end of December right now. It's actually Christmas Eve, if you can believe it, when I'm filming this. So I was able to sneak back here between family get-togethers. But this is an extremely uncharacteristic weather pattern for Christmas Eve in northern Minnesota. For any of you watching, maybe you can correct me, but I don't know if this has ever happened in my lifetime. I'm in my mid-30s, where we have rain and no snow on Christmas Eve. Let me know in the comments if we've had a year like this that you know of in north central Minnesota. But really warm, really rainy now this late season, which is helping the deer out, which is awesome. But I've been really impressed, you guys, with the late season attractiveness of this rye in this plot. I've had deer coming in all late season, all late November, all early and mid and late December. I've had does and fawns and bucks pawing through the snow to get at this rye, which to me is really cool, because with the soils that I got, I need to really rely on this rye and the cereal grains right now to carry me through. Something that's highly browse tolerant in the early season and late summer, but will also have that holding power throughout the fall into the late season. Now you might be looking at this field and seeing how green it is and saying, yeah, you know, it's probably because it's so warm and raining where you're at that rye is actually perking up. And I believe that's actually happening. I think some of these plants are actually putting on growth right now because the top couple inches of soil is thawed now. So this is a unique year. However, even when we did have snow on the ground, the deer were still pawing through this completely frozen winter rye to get at it. So although it's unique, although this is uncharacteristically warm weather right now, I think that this rye is still doing what I want it to, and I'm really impressed with how much attraction there is during the late season, even with snow on the ground. If you get a good stand of it, and like I said, I had planted mine earlier, so I had a lot of forage and tonnage out here in the actual rye plants themselves. You know, they weren't a half-inch tall. This field isn't solid mud and tracks, you know what I mean? Which you run that risk the later you wait to plant your rye. So I think there's a balance there, and I'm gonna play with it a little bit to try to keep perfecting that balance of tonnage to palatability with the age of the rye plant. So again, this part of the plot where I'm standing in right now, this actually had oats top seeded on top of it on Labor Day weekend after a standing bed of rye was established in early August. Now over here, I had planted some younger rye that I didn't even plant at all until Labor Day weekend. So let's go take a look and see what that part of the plot over there looks like. All right, now I'm standing in the other part of the food plot where I planted this rye for the first time on Labor Day weekend. Still came up good. We had tons of rain, so we went from an extremely dry growing season in the summer. We just flipped all of a sudden to a really wet fall. So this got tons, this rye that I planted just top seeded right on top of the ground, this got tons of rain throughout the fall. It was a really warm, mild fall. So it was what I would consider ideal growing conditions for this winter rye. You can see how hard they've been hitting it. I did not plant oats in this part of the plot, but this end as well had deer coming in early season, mid-season, peak rut, and now late season into late December. So muzzleloading hunting, kind of that late season look. Tons of action out here. This winter rye has just really held its own against all the other food plots, seeds that I've planted. And I'm really happy with the performance of this winter rye in my food plot this year. I'll show you guys a couple of the pine trees I've planted. I got pines planted all throughout here around my food plot. You can see behind me I got some browse blockers on them. The cool thing about these white spruce, like this one behind me coming, is the deer don't touch the white spruce where I'm at. They will browse every other conifer, red pine, white pine, balsam, you name it, jack pine, and they just won't touch the white spruce. So I got all my other conifers that I've planted and young volunteers that are coming around my plot. I've got them all browse blockered up. If you guys want to buy some browse blockers, you can go to the link in the description of the video if you want to check out the website. He'll actually throw in a few extras if you order on it and say you saw this on YouTube. You can see over here I got a couple of my trees caged with some leftover fencing that I have. But that fencing, if you're trying to buy metal fencing, it just gets way too expensive for, you know, a lot of young pine trees that you're trying to protect. It's crazy. I've even got a either browse blocker or cage my red oaks around here. Of course, the fruit trees too, where they just won't make it with the amount of deer pressure. So, all right, now this is just a really nice comparison. You can see behind me over in this area, you can see how green that winter rye looks right now. And then on this side over here, on the wood side, you can see how kind of yellow and dead that grass looks. I just thought this was a really nice kind of comparison to show how green and luscious this winter rye is into the late season. Again, it's uncharacteristically warm right now. So on a typical year in late December, we'd probably have 10, 12 inches of snow right now and freezing temps. But nonetheless, as we get kind of those real frozen conditions, which we've had here for a long time. I mean, this ground has been frozen for weeks straight. And we've had snow on the ground this fall, then it melted, but where you get kind of that freezing and then thawing and freezing and thawing, you can see how this rye just perks right back up, gets green. And then, you know, all like the native plants, the native grasses, things like that back in the woods completely brown and dead right now. So I'm still getting deer out of my plot right now using this, which is really cool. I just give winter rye a double thumbs up. It just continues to produce for me. It brings me year-round action, and I really like incorporating the oats into there as well. It just gives the deer another another cereal grain that's coming into and leaving palatability at maybe a slightly different time than the rye, or it gives them more diversity and more options to pick from out here when they're coming out here to feed at night. So that's my assessment on my food plot. I'm just really happy with this rye. I'm kind of curious to hear from you guys what's been working in your food plots, what hasn't been late season. That's always a consideration for me is, you know, do you have an early season plot, a peak rut plot, a late season plot, or all of the above? That's what I'm trying to do here, is create attraction on my plot for the whole season. So I'll leave it there, you guys. Christmas is tomorrow. The video will probably be coming out after Christmas, but I hope you had a good one. Hope you have a happy and safe New Year's, and I will catch you guys on the next video.